BISD group, and you actually responded to the email. So we're glad to see a large group here. We do enjoy the opportunity to share information with you and keep our community very informed. Today we'll be talking from the Department of Staff and Student Services. Mr. Cameron will be up in a moment to kind of kick that off. Principal panel, distinguished guests here, and some other members from our department, so we look forward to that. Certainly get some great information. Just one thing I want to share with you, I think there's a few members of our Citizens Bond Committee here as well. It's a busy time. Schedules are going to be really busy this semester and into the next semester as well. But it's an exciting time that our board has asked us to convene a committee and begin to look at some of the primarily facility needs across the district, but also instructional needs and just things that we can do on our campuses to help best prepare our students for their future. It's a different and exciting future, but a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges from the state as far as school finance is concerned, and new accountability standards. And it's definitely an exciting time to be in education, but no better place to be than in this community where we've got supportive parents, supportive people like yourself that are willing to come be a part of a group like this, and just gain information and continue to do a great job of supporting the public school, educated students. I want to thank you for that. So at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to Joe Rod, Associate Superintendent for Staff and Student Services.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here today to tell you the work with the outstanding people that I get to work with on a daily basis. When we first kicked off leadership BISD, it was January 10th of last year. Each cabinet member came up and did a presentation about the departments we work with. And what I'm going to do is tell you a little about that group. At that time, I shared with you that I had the opportunity to work with the Human Resources Department, the Student Services Department. I had the honor to supervise the 33 principals, but my primary focus was on campus support. After several months of this configuration, it was determined that we needed a person with strong background in elementary education to assist the director of elementary principals. Our new director of elementary education, Lorraine Allenby, was selected, and Lorraine's here today. Lorraine, put a picture of you there. You stand up, please. Lorraine works with our elementary principals. And with our emphasis on campus support, it was also decided that 3 departments whose function is to assist specialized staff members at the campus level should be moved to our division. You'll see those members behind me. These include health services, who work with our school nurses, and is led by Amy Howard. Counseling services, led by Donna Lair. And fine arts, led by Danny Dietrich. This transition has been very smooth. It's been a pleasure to work with these outstanding educators. We have a common mission and belief that we will do everything we possibly can to make every student, staff member, and realize these successful. At this time, I had 2 guest speakers. I've asked the directors of the Human Resources Department and the Student Services Department to come here to provide information to you about the organizations that they supervise. Our first speaker will be Dr. Richard Valenta, who has worked in Redville ISD for 18 years, 13 as the director of our HR department, and 5 years as a campus administrator and assistant athletic director. Dr. Valenta.
Good morning. So I didn't know that we were the only 2 that were going to be speaking this morning. I thought we were. So I understand I only have 5 to 7 minutes to be able to share with you everything that you would ever want to know about human resources. So that could be somewhat of a challenge, I think. Human resources is a very fun and exciting place to be. I'm a people person. That's my favorite thing that in interviews, when I ask somebody what their strengths are, and they say, well, I'm a people person. Well, I really like that response until you have to hire somebody, and then they're nowhere to be found. And I kid our principals a little bit because, you say, well, they earn their title by being an instructional leader, and that's absolutely true. But they also there's a balance there. They also earn their title when they have to investigate, document, and recommend the termination of an ineffective employee. That's when they they earn their stripes. I know many of you understand that. But human resources it's kind of like coaching baseball. You know, everybody's at least playing baseball or watching, so they think they can coach it. And it's the same thing in human resources. I mean, we're all human beings, so we kind of associate that with that. But that's not necessarily true. You know, we talk about that's the fun part, I guess, of human resources when you think about it, because you know you get to hire people, and Gallup does this world poll. They've interviewed over 6 billion people, and they ask one question. The question is, what do you really want in life? I mean, what's really important to you in life? I don't care if you're wealthy, middle class, or poor. I don't care what part of the world that you're in. The answer to that question is overwhelmingly the same. They want a good job. Plain and simple. They just want a good job. And so that's the fun part of HR. Getting to pick up the phone, be able to call someone, and provide them with a livelihood, a wonderful livelihood. And so that's neat. Then there's that other spectrum, the other end, where you have to do, sometimes you have to identify and do some things that aren't always pleasant. And that is possibly having to investigate, document, ineffective employees. You know, it is kind of like teaching too. It's the same thing. In teaching, you think, well, you know, I've been in the classroom. Everybody in this room has been in the classroom, and I've watched people teach. So it's got to be easy, right? I mean, teaching isn't easy. All you got to do is stand up and entertain 22 pairs of eyes, or if it's K through 4, hopefully 22 pairs of eyes. I'm struggling with that a little bit at this time. But the point is, you know, is it really easy? You know, is it and what you think is, well, everybody loves kids, right? Everybody in here loves kids, don't they? Well, the simple truth, ladies and gentlemen, that's just not enough. It's just not enough to love kids. We have to hire people that have this burning, we call it neurotic DNA. They have to possess this neurotic DNA, this burning desire to want to make a difference in the life of children. And so that's the difference. There's a huge difference between I love kids. And my brother-in-law loves kids, but I never want to put him in the classroom. Dangerous situation. Everybody, and I have a couple of brother-in-laws, so if anybody knows who that is, identify that person. But my point is, it goes much greater than just saying, well, I love kids. Again, 5 to 7 minutes to cover everything, it's virtually impossible. I brought a list of all the things that we do to impress you. You know, I think when you look at the top 5 issues in human resources, you're looking at staffing, selection, retention, code of ethics, renewal, non-renewal, and termination. And underneath that, you have a broad variety of things. It's just, it's huge. Like, for instance, in staffing, we have budgets. You know, I think Mr. Sill can stand up and tell you 85, and he's our CFO. Mr. Sill's here at this time. Oh, he left? Okay. I guess because he knew I was fixing to say this. And you know that 85% of our budget is made up of paying our people. That's a huge amount. So staffing is critical. Selection, hiring the best, hiring talented people is so important. Retention, retaining the talent that you have. Code of ethics, making sure that the people that you hire are the people that you want in the classroom. The people that you want your children to be confronted with every day in a positive way, in an instructive way, in a way that's, that they truly are going to make a difference in their life. And then this renewal, non-renewal, and termination, that involves all the different aspects of contracts. But we have such a multitude of different personnel. And I know you do too in your businesses. But we have at-will employees, we have contracted employees, we have term contracts, continuing contracts, probationary contracts. We have people that work 174 days, all the way up to 248 days and in between. We have hourly workers, bi-monthly workers, monthly employees, 10-month employees, 11-month employees, 12-month employees. We have pay cycles that are just that vary tremendously. So there's a whole lot to what we do. And then you get into selection and certification. You say, as I said before, let me give you a little example of what I'm talking about. You say, well, it's easy to be a teacher. You get a lot of publicity about, well, you just hire somebody off the street. As long as they have a degree, they can walk into the classroom. Well, we'll take this example for instance. Let's say you have a self-contained classroom and you have kids that have special needs. Let's say they're emotionally disturbed kids and you have them self-contained. What does it take for a teacher to teach those kids? Well, they have to be, because we have to follow both state and federal guidelines. If they meet the state requirement by simply passing an EC through 12 or an EC through 6, whatever level they're teaching, state exit, and they also have to pass a pedagogy test. But if they are in high school and they're teaching all 4 core areas, science, math, social studies, and English language arts, then that self-contained special ed teacher not only has to have certification in EC through 12, but also pass a pedagogy test, they also have to be proficient in all 4 core areas, which means they have to have 24 hours in science, 24 hours in math, 24 hours in social studies, 24 hours in English language arts. You find me that person walking around on the street. And if you don't have that, then the only other way you can do it is pass an exit to say that you're proficient in any one of those 4 areas. So, you know, it kind of chaps me a little bit when I hear that about, you know, it's easy to be a teacher, anybody can do it. That's just one example of many when you get into certification issues that it's really pretty convoluted. We do have to meet state requirements. We also have to meet federal requirements because we receive federal money. We have the aspect of talent, screening and interviewing, criminal history, fingerprinting, and retention. You have to make sure your salaries are in the market, which in these times is very, very difficult. Benefits, are you providing your folks with the kind of benefits that they want to stay with you, or will they jump ship and go somewhere else? The Metroplex is a wonderful area, but the problem is, in the Metroplex, you don't have to move to go to another school district. You just maybe have to drive a little bit further. So you have to make sure, that you're providing your folks with those things, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic things where you're paying them in the market and you're providing them those things that will keep them there. Evaluation to grow people, technology, that's huge now. You've got to provide the kind of technology that's going to keep the people in place. Code of ethics and high expectations, standards of conduct. You know, we're more scrutinized in our profession than the president. I mean, that's just a simple fact. That's the simple truth. Zero tolerance with all this issue now of harassment and bullying. Not only children being bullied, but employees being bullied as well. Measuring performance. How we go about measuring performance. The issues of grievances. Dealing with employees that are unsettled or feel like they need to have their voice heard. And grievances are good. Pretty good. Giving opportunity for people, and then, of course, everything dealing with contracts that I've already mentioned. But I think really what I wanted to show you, and again, I'm running out of time, but I wanted to show you a couple of, technology one. I'll show you a couple of slides here, but I think maybe the thing that you want to look at is, okay, well, this stuff about the number of administrators that we have, or the ratio of staff in verbal ISD compared to the state. But it's just a simple example here. Those are percentages at the top. You can see as you go across there, if you look at the major categories that we have in the school district. Now, these numbers are not my numbers. They come from the AEIS report that any of you can access online. It's the Academic Excellence Indicator System. All you have to do is go online, go to TEA, and you can pop this up here. You can see any district in the state that you want. And that's where these numbers came from. If you look at the comparison of teachers being in or BISD being in the dark blue, the lighter blue is the state, you can see that BISD has about the same number of teachers as other districts do across the state. You can see professional support, virtually a dead heat. You can see the campus administration, actually we have a little less than the state. You can see central administration, virtually a dead heat, 1.1% to 1% as compared to the state. Educational assistants, the state's got a few more educational assistants than we do, almost 1 percentage point. And then you have auxiliary support, which is virtually a dead heat. So hopefully that's a disclaimer saying that we're not overpopulated with all these administrators. It's pretty obvious there. And again, these are, is somebody changing this, Mark, or did I do it myself? All right, this next one is really interesting, and it's one of my pet peeves, actually. You know, I've been doing this for a while, and I get the opportunity, not so much anymore because of a budget situation, but you know, the internet now is so huge that your recruiting is totally different now. You go out and you market a district now, You don't go out and try to convince somebody to be a teacher or get in the profession or come to verbal. You go out and you market the wonderful things about verbal so that they'll apply online. And then you have a system in place to screen those that you apply. Then you bring them in and you do the interviews, the campus interviews, and the whole 9 yards. But this chart shows the comparison of student-teacher ethnicity. Now, this is within our district, because I get this a lot. Why don't our teachers reflect the ethnicity of our children? Why don't you go out and find those minority teachers and bring them to verbal ISD? What's the problem? Well, let's look at the data first. Again, this is from the AIS report. The number of Caucasian white students in verbal is 48.3%. To the number of white teachers in verbal is 87%. Huge disparity, right? Huge disparity. When you look at Hispanic, 36.9% of our students are Hispanic in verbal ISD. 8.2% of our teachers are Hispanic. Pretty good disparity. African American, 6.7% of our students are African American. 2% of our teachers. And on across, you can see. Well, here's the simple truth. The reason why those numbers are balanced there, you see the same thing in 99% of your suburban school districts, is simply this. There's just not enough minority candidates out there to hire. It's just plain and simple. We've gone all over. It's at 10 years ago, we would go to Arkansas, Louisiana, West Texas, South Texas, East Texas, everywhere we could go. And what you find is they don't want to leave. It's the same reason why you're here in the Metro place. You like this place. You like where you live. You like the opportunities that you have here. It's no different than those in the teaching ranks. There virtually is no salary that you could pay to convince someone to move hundreds of miles to a place that they're not familiar with. I mean, unless it's astronomical. But there's just not that much difference in salary. So the simple truth on this is that so what's the answer? The answer is grow your own. The answer is grow your own. We have to identify those people, verbal ISD, those young people that possess those natural recurring patterns of thoughts and behaviors that the best teachers have. And we have to trace them, follow them, encourage them, and hope that they want to go in the teaching profession. And let them come back and promise them an opportunity to interview with a Scott Gregory or Carl Riggs or an Ernie Valdez. And hopefully that is the way that we can balance out these differences. And let me end with this. And it's very simple because I'm really big about talent. Talent is huge. So if I were to ask this question to all of you in here, if you think back about the best teacher you had, the very best teacher that you had in school, and you could come up with one word to describe that person, what would that one word be? Yell it out. Caring. Caring. Persistence. Persistence. Loving. One more. Patient. Okay, those are actually coming out. Consistent, patient, caring, loving. Tell me which one of those you can teach. Tell me what university you can go to in America and they could teach you to be caring, loving, persistent. Folks, like Papa, I am what I am. You come that way. Our job in HR, and the most important job we have, even with all that other clutter and flack and all that other stuff we deal with, the most important thing that we can do every day is to hire those people that come that way. Because, you know, when they have that kind of talent, the curriculum instruction can do miracles with them. They're coachable. They're willing to do the things that we need to have done in this district to make this place the kind of powerful academic mecca that we want it to be. It's all about talent. It always has, you know, your organization is the greatness of your organization is reflected in your people. It's plain and simple. And that's what's exciting about HR. So I didn't go into a lot of nuts and bolts and details about it, but it's an exciting place to be. And I've loved being part of it here in Verbal, and Verbal is a great place to work. Mr. Cameron.
Interesting point on that. All those things that you mentioned have nothing to do with race.
You know, if you don't mind, you're exactly right. And if I can just take a moment. When I was an assistant principal at Sam Houston Junior High, the majority of our students at Sam Houston were minority. The majority of our staff was Anglo, 99%. And when parents would come and talk to me, they never talked about grades. You know what they talked about? How blessed they were to have a quality teacher in the classroom working with their kids. And that has always stuck with me. So you are absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
Our next
Ring
was Dr. Rick Kemp, like Dr. Martin. Dr. Kemp has a wealth of experience in adult education, serving in his role as Director of Student Services for 12 years. And then 12 years before that as a school principal. Dr. Kemp.
I'm going to grab the microphone. Marcus, if that might help a little bit. I'm going to ask Kim Tweet to hand out some brochures. Stephanie to hand out some brochures. Which is just our departmental profile and what we do in our office in student services. Because a lot of people ask, well, what do you do all day? Well, I'm about to tell you. Dr. Melinda's asked first thing thing. Well, see, I thought you were going to introduce me and you were going to say, and one of those talented people that we hired.
One of those talented people that we hired.
Yeah. I'm going to go down just the center part of this and just talk about the essence of our office and what we do. The first thing I want to talk about is our school transfers. And we do several thousand school transfers a year. In the primary way that we transfer students from one school to another is open enrollment, both in the district and those who come from outside the district. We transferred last year a little over 1,200 students inside BISD, giving their parents choices about where they went to school. We also transferred over 800 kids into our district from outside BISD. The reason we started doing that several years ago was when the state funding formula changed. The only way you can get more money from the state is more kids. And we knew we were flat, essentially flat. And so we started bringing in kids. We thought we might bring in 100 kids. That was our thought. And that first year, we brought in about 300 kids, and it's just grown ever since. Now, the revenue amount that's tied to that so far is a little over $3 million a year. And we've done that not by hiring more teachers, but by putting students in seats, as Quentin Burnett used to say, if you're getting on an airplane and there are empty seats, it doesn't cost you any more to fly the plane from here to New York. And so that's really what we've done. Now the problem is we're about to convene a committee because we've pretty well maxed out the plane. And we are out of seats and we are really struggling district-wide with where to put those students. And so the last couple of years we've even had to look at, because we're trying to meet the state mandate of 22-to-1, we've had to look at overflowing some of our kids. And when we overflow, we do this in K-4. We have students who, once we hit 22-to-1 in K-1-2, or 24-to-1 in 3rd and 4th, to keep those teachers' numbers low, we move those students to another campus that's close to them, or that's the goal. The problem is the campuses close to them are now filling up as well. But we've transferred this year, in the first 2 weeks of school, 65 to 75 kids from their home campus to an adjoining school, trying to keep our numbers down for the teachers in the classroom. So that's been quite a challenge to explain to parents, and we have had those parents that live directly across the street from a school, that they bought their house because they're looking at the campus and we're moving them to other campuses. That's a tricky little fine line we've walked to explain to parents how that can happen. But we do have a state mandate of trying to keep our numbers low, and we want to do what's best for instruction in the classroom for our students. So those are two of the big ways that we transfer students. Another thing that we do in our office is we deal with student discipline. I work with the assistant principals in the district. We have guidelines for when a student is sent to the alternative school. We send anywhere, over my 12 years here, we've tracked it, anywhere from 600 to 800 students a year to our DAP, which is our district alternative school. That could be anything from fighting to assaults to drugs and alcohol on campus. And when you think about it, that's a really low percentage when you have 24,000 students. And of course, some of those 600 to 800 go 2 or 3 times in a year. So, but I work with the assistant principals trying to keep those numbers low, trying to keep students in the classroom. That's our goal. We know the best education they can get is with those home campus teachers that Dr. Valente has hired. But sometimes, for the safety of the other students, they have to come off the campus. And so we work with them to do that. We also deal with all the level 2 hearings because I know you'd be surprised by this, but some of those 600 parents don't believe little Johnny should go to the alternative school. And so they appeal that first to the campus principal and then to our office. And so we hear those as well. School safety since 9/11 has become a huge thing for our department. We really, when I got here, 9/11 did not happen. I got here July 1 of 2001. And so school safety was really not on the front burner of anyone's issue. What we talk about is how we manage a campus, how we manage a district. We had that opportunity last week with Holiday Heights when we had the fire. Half of our emergency management team was on the scene at 6:30 that morning, but the entire team convened at 9:30, and Dr. Brown does not make those decisions in isolation. He uses our team to gain a lot of input before making that decision as to what's best for the students on a particular campus. But those are the kinds of issues that we do. We've had in my 12 years, we've had a couple of years ago at Mr. Duke's place, we had a shooting right across the street from the school. One of his teachers' wife was actually shot out of her car, but it had to do with an intruder at the home, and the gentleman was home and he came out shooting. And he certainly has a right to do so. Unfortunately, it was pointed at the school with kids on the playground. So, you know, we've had those issues through the years. We not only get together as a team 3 or 4 times a year for those kinds of emergencies, we work with people like Perry Bynum, the EMT coordinator at Halton City, and our other cities, and we meet quarterly, internally, consistently throughout the year to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of what's going on and to keep our team and our communication open. We deal with all the enrollment issues. This is the busiest time for us in our office because, you know, when I was growing up, we had mom and dad. Mom and dad took us to register, and that was all just the way it was. In today's world, we have 6 notebooks in our office that are 2 inches thick. It's this thick of power of attorneys. And what power of attorney says is our son Mitchell, Wendy, and I have taken them over and given them to the Valentas, and we've notarized and signed off paperwork that the Valentas are going to take care of him this school year. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of aunts, uncles, and grandparents that are doing that in our school district. And so we work with that process. Also, proof of residence is a system where if the Kemp family moved in with the Valenta family, y'all are empty nesters now, aren't you? So you've got room for us. You've been looking forward to that? Is that what you're about to say? Yeah, okay, all right. But if we doubled up in this economy, y'all, you know, we used to just have a few of those. We have hundreds of those now. And homeless, I don't do that anymore. That's moved out of our office into another office. Grandparent affidavit is an interesting thing. The state legislature passed a couple of years ago if If the parents live outside the school district, but the grandparents live inside the school district, and the grandparents provide daycare before or after school, the student can go there, even though the parents and the student actually live somewhere else. It's a provision in state law and it's mandated, so we coordinate that. And then the thing that I think a lot of people think the only thing we do is handle complaints. And we do that. We do a lot of listening in my office to folks. And what we do most of the time is redirect them back to the campus principal, because most of them think if they send an email to the board president or the superintendent, they automatically bypass all the systems. And that's not at all the way that it works. If you email the superintendent, you're going to get a call from me, and my call is going to say, have you talked to Carter Riggs? And we listen a lot, but we redirect them right back to the people who can correct the problem. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions you may have. I've answered every question.
Oh, yeah.
One thing you do have on your table is that multicolored sheet, and I want to commend Mark Thomas's office for that. We also, one of the things that we do is, hold that one up for me, so that, yeah, that one. Thank you. One of the things on our EMT, this is a brand new brochure just being delivered to the campuses last week and this week that asks the question. One thing that I always ask, my wife's a teacher at Northridge Middle School, and in the event of an emergency, what would my wife need? Well, she doesn't want that 2-inch notebook that I have that Harry and I spend hours working on. She wants to flip to something that says, in a lockdown, this is what I do. In a shelter in place, this is what I do. And so those flip charts are actually made for the teachers in the classroom. They all have one, or they will have one by the end of this week. We're actually, tomorrow morning at 9:30, having our first district-wide drill. We drill 4 times a year district-wide, and we have our first one in the morning. So we take emergency situations and school safety with our kids. It's one of Dr. Brown's priorities, and it's a high priority for all of us. Yes, sir.
With the substitute teachers,
Yes, sir.
how would they look? My wife's a son in the United States.
Actually,
She goes to the school, she's not gonna handle it.
Actually, tomorrow, we've got about 5 teachers per school out in training at you here next door. Margaret Kilgo's here. And we decided to go ahead with that because it's going to be a way tomorrow we can, with our substitutes, and that's what I've told the principals, make sure your substitutes are aware that we're going to have this drill tomorrow, show them the form, and make sure that they understand it. So we're actually, that's part of tomorrow's plan because a lot of folks are going to be out, and we're utilizing nearly every substitute in the system tomorrow. So it's going to be a great training day in that way too. Yes, sir.
Dr. Kemp, as you know, work closely together, and all the cities work closely together with BISD. But as we move forward in the future with public health emergencies, I know that's a large challenge for you to be able to coordinate that response and protect the students and the teachers. How do you see that changing for BISD over the next 5 years or so?
Well, and when you talk about public health response, when we have things like H1N1 and that kind of thing, the West Nile virus, we're involved in all of those kinds of issues now that even 10 or 15 years ago we didn't, because of media, we really just didn't get involved in that. That's going to be one of those challenges for us. One of the things that I've put in budgetarily the last couple of years has been some help in the area of school safety, and hopefully we'll get some relief from the legislature that we might be able to do that. But our last, we did an actual, when H1N1 hit, we were one of the sites for giving H1N1 shots, and the line to get in to get those shots at the Coliseum, circled the Coliseum, went down the street to past the Church of Christ, the Urban Church of Christ, and around the corner and up Carson Street, and I couldn't see the end of it. And Perry and I were on site that day. That was quite an event. But when we have those events, We are one of the key players in our area of town to help administer those kinds of things with public health. Hopefully they'll fix all of that, but we won't have a meeting. All right, Mr. Cameron.
You can see why I said what a pleasure it is to work with the staff in my department. Can we give Dr. Valente and Dr. Kemp a hand, please? I do want to add a little bit of information about something Dr. Kemp said about 600 to 800 kids DAP per year. That's not all at one time. Some of those kids go as few as 20 days, so it's spread out over the entire year. And the second thing is, and I'm proud of this, I want to share with you, not every school district sends kids to DAP for fighting their assaults. We have a very low tolerance for that type of violence on campus, and that's something that all of our kids and our staff benefit from. We don't accept that as being something that will take place on campus, and that is a result of DAP placement. The next part of our agenda is our 7 of our principals, high school principal, 2 middle school principals, and 4 elementary principals. Can I get y'all to step up to your seats? When Mr. Thomas, his department notified you and reminded you of today's meeting, I think he mentioned in his email that opportunity to ask questions to principal panel will take place. And actually either submit questions or formulate questions in your mind about the type of things you'd like to hear about from campus leadership. So that's where we are right now. So I will step aside. I will ask each principal. I know you read their name and their campus, but some of you on the back may not be able to. So Mr. Dukes, why don't you start us by introducing yourself, your campus, and your years of experience. Mike?
I'm Mike Dukes, and I have been a principal for 13 years. This is my 13th year, and was over at Spicer for 10 years, and this is my 3rd year over at Snow Heights. And so very much enjoy it. Someone has asked me, I've been asked this several times, how long am I going to keep going? But I love it, and I love working with the kids, I love working with the teachers, and just feel that it is such a privilege to be a principal in Burville Independent School District. It is just an awesome place, and the support is incredible, and the community we serve is just the best. And so I want to thank all of you because y'all play a big part in everything that we do here.
My name is Billy Pope. I'm the principal of Mullendore Elementary School. I've been in the district for 23 years. This is my 6 years principal, 15 years as administrator. I too I'm not a Burkle product. I'm a product of HEB and Amarillo ISD, but I landed here in Burkle as soon as I could get here. One of the things that Richard Valente talked about struck true to me is that one of the things I get to do is I get to be a dream chaser and catcher, and help people become what they want to be. I'm the first, the only Pope to ever graduate from college, simply because a fellow by the name of Mr. Gary Biggers at Amarillo High School took an interest in me. And so now I have a daughter in college, and my son's going to go to college because of what Mr. Biggers did. And I'm fortunate to get to do that for your children as well.
And I'm Jeff Russell. This is my 2nd year at Halton Middle School. I was a principal at Smithfield Middle School for 8 years, and love going to work every day. My son transferred from Smithfield to Halton this year, and it's great to go to work and have that parent perspective as well as the professional one, and try to give other kids what I would want from my own son. So enjoy what I do every day. I am a product of Burkle. I went to Richland High School, graduated in '87, and my parents both taught in the district for over 30 years, and I love BISD.
I'm J.B. Smith. I'm the principal at W.A. Porter Elementary School in Hurst. I have been in Burville for, this starts my 29th year. I did my student teaching here at what used to be Glenview Elementary and is now Binion Elementary. I've been an administrator for 11 years, and 8 of those years have been at Porter. And I have to echo what these gentlemen have said, that it is a privilege to work in Burville ISD. I wouldn't want to be any place else. So thank you for inviting us here today so we could just visit with you a little while.
I'm Ernie Valamedes, and I'm the principal at North Richland Middle School. And it's great to see everyone here this morning. And this is my 34th year in education, and the 20th as an administrator, and the 15th in BISD. And one of the best things that has happened in my career is to come to the BISD 15 years ago, and it's just an outstanding school district, such wonderful quality people that are associated within the schools, and all the support from the parents is just unbelievable. So I feel very, very blessed to be the principal and to be associated with everyone in the BISD. I do want to, there have been many people that have come through our school, throughout the history of our school, and I do want to invite everyone, if you have an opportunity, we're going to celebrate our 50th anniversary of our school this coming Saturday. And it begins at 1 o'clock in our auditorium, and we're going to walk the decades in the cafeteria and see exhibits and have refreshments. And so if you have any association, and even if you don't, and you're just part of the BISD as the leadership group, you're certainly welcome to come and visit, and we'd love to have you, okay? So thank you very much.
My name is Scott Gregory. I've been in Birdville 18 years, and I have the privilege of coming to events like yesterday with Kilgo Training and seeing people at so many tables that I know because I've worked at so many campuses. I've worked with 6 principals as an assistant principal, Jamie Smith being one of them, and been at 5 campuses as an administrator, but I currently have the best job in Birdville as principal at Walker Creek, right over across the street from the hockey rink. My wife and I have graduated 3 kids through the Birdville system, 3 in college now, all Birdville High School Hawks. We currently have 1 more over at Birdville High School, and I get to take my lovely little 3rd grade daughter, Charlie, to work every day. Dropped her off this morning before I came over here. And if you've never had the experience of taking your own child to school and getting to see them in the hallway every day, and in the cafeteria, and in the gym, and on the playground, it is absolutely the best. I highly recommend it if you ever get an opportunity to do something like that. It's just the very, very best. I was a classroom teacher, and my goal each and every day when I would walk up and down the hallways and go into classrooms is to never, ever forget that perspective of what it is to be a teacher and to remember what these people are going through each and every day in those classrooms. It is the hardest job in the world, but it is the most important and best job in the world.
I'm going to argue with him because I have the best job in the ISD, and that's principal at Richland High School. It is my dream job. I'm serving out my dream, and I feel very blessed for that. I have 26 years teaching experience because I love the classroom. I love to teach, and I love to look out here and see former students that are now leaders here donating time to share with us today, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you for being here, my former students. This is my 9th year as an administrator, and I feel fortunate to serve our students, and I feel fortunate to be in BISD because I taught 7 years before I came to BISD, and I feel like I really became a teacher when I came here. I've always had the opportunity to learn, and it's very important that I share that opportunity with my teachers and our students that we are here to learn. Same thing with our parents. I see great parents out here that have been at Richland High School and with us, and the gift that you give to our students in learning, it helps us every day. And so we're all glad to be here today and share with you.
We're going to move the table here, kind of put them a little closer together.
Once we get set up over here, we're ready to start accepting questions. Just raise your hand, speak loud and clear, so they can. You can direct it to any principal or a particular principal by whatever level of campus you have in mind. And I believe we're ready. Right here.
This question is directed to Mr. Valamedes and Mr. Russell primarily. I know it's early yet, but have you seen any positive or negative change as far as a change in SRO status goes for your schools, not having a police officer in your school?
Well, I guess it's just a little different. We did have an issue that we had to have the police come to our campus Seeing the Halton City Police, they've been very visible on our campus since the beginning of the year. I've talked to the officers that are on duty out there, and they've expressed that they're going to be extremely visible and diligent. I did have a situation where I had to get them involved and work with the family, and not having an SRO, it's just they're not in that office with you, but they were there within 15 minutes, 10 minutes. It wasn't an emergency. The person that we have, that's the new resource officer, they've been very visible and diligent. I've seen the kids accept them and be responsive to them when they've asked them to do things. So on our end right now, it's looking positive, I would say.
I do want to add, it has been very positive up to this point. I think the difference, the impact initially has been that there's been more visibility with having a security officer there ongoing, okay? I mean, throughout each period, during the passing periods, before and after school, any activities that we have, we try to schedule the officer to be there for the events. It has provided a lot of visibility ongoing throughout the entire school day. And in our situation with our SRO that we had before, great relationship, and we appreciate everything that they have done for our campus, but we split with Northridge. And so half of the time they were in our school and half the time they were at Northridge. And great situation. Whenever there was a need at each one of the campuses, that they would be there. But I think the most important part is that we've had visibility ongoing. And we had a situation the first week of school, and we had to call the police officer. We called 911, we called North Richland Hills Police Department, and within 3 minutes, the police were there in the office. And it was great to know that, so we really have we feel like we have the best of both worlds. Ongoing now with supervision with our security officer, and within just a real short amount of time, if we need to have an officer, they'll be right there in our school. So.
Next question?
Just concerned with a recent event that occurred at elementary school just a few weeks back concerning a fire that occurred at elementary school. And you all address that on a daily basis. When you start concerning yourself with a catastrophic event of that nature, how it impacts your school, both in cognitive operational planning, but how do you continue on educating those students the next day and the next day? In that planning piece, I would assume that would be a huge challenge for every one of you because you go through drills on a daily basis, how to protect your students, protect your staff, and then the visitors that come into your school too. So that challenge, I'll just open it up to any one of you to answer that question. I know you've entertained that, but how does that really look to you at what's occurring on your campus?
I'm probably a good person to ask because my wife actually teaches at Holiday Heights where the fire occurred, and it was in the electrical closet next to her gym. So we had no idea what to expect the next day. She was, had visions in her mind of all the things she just spent hundreds of dollars on over the summer, being destroyed. Fortunately, the damage was not that bad. But the sentiment among the teachers, at least from my wife's perspective, was that it was almost a little bit of a blessing to get those 2 days. And Richland High School was gracious enough to open up their rooms so that the teachers from Holiday Heights just down the street actually went to Richland High School for 2 days, and they had 2 days essentially of planning time. I mean, my teachers would consider that a gift. So they took a bad situation and made the most of it. And the principal on campus led some staff development, had an opportunity to get into the computer lab, we were having some challenges with the new planning program. And so it was really kind of a good thing for them. And I think that is kind of the spirit of Burkeville in general. We've got so many campuses, and we're just a close-knit. You heard so many people talk about how long we've been in Burkeville. We know each other quite well. So when things like this happen, I mean, it's like you can't even get back to your office and you've got a dozen phone calls. How can I help? What can I do for you? Can I provide space? Do you need this? Do you need that? And it's genuine response. So I think from that perspective, it worked out really well for the Holiday Heights teachers. From the idea of if there were a fire on my campus, it's a very scary thought. That is why we rely on Dr. Kemp's office to guide us, and we do fire drills every month. We do lockdown drills. We take those very seriously because, and as we're watching those drills, we are very vigilant about what, in my mind, every time, my mindset is always, if this were real, what would we be doing? And we try to vary the scenarios, do them during lunchtime, do them during very inopportune times, because we all know that if it were a real emergency, it's going to be at an inopportune time. So we really practice those things and take them very seriously.
Just recently on my campus, we went over our safety plan. All of our teachers have red emergency backpacks where they keep all of their information. And what happened during this meeting as we're going through, okay, here's what's in our safety plan, and here are the steps. The teachers and the staff members can say, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? And so together, we try to anticipate all the different pitfalls. And finally, you have to say, there's probably going to be something that we don't anticipate, but what I want them to do is to be able to look at that safety plan and use their common sense and follow that plan. And as Scott said, we are very fortunate to have that safety team that once we get, initially everyone situated, they would be there to help and to guide us, and we're very fortunate with that.
I want to jump in here right now because when I was at Spicer, we did have a fire over there. And we lost 2 kindergarten rooms. They were outside kindergarten rooms. So it didn't affect us like the fire at Holiday Heights did last year. But it's a very traumatic thing. Those kids lost their classroom. Those teachers lost their classroom and everything that was in it. I know the day following that, we had crisis counselors on our campus, and they worked very closely with the teachers and with the children and with the families to help them understand what had happened to their room, and how we were going to adapt as a result of it. Everything worked out very well. You hate that. It's a horrible experience. Lots of things that you go through afterwards that consume a lot of time because you have to account for everything that's been lost. You have to attempt to put a dollar amount on how much has been lost. So there's a lot there. But the one thing that we always keep in mind is we are always, always, always planning around the students. And anytime we have a drill, those students are accounted for, every single one of them. Regardless of whatever is going on, that is going to be our #1 priority, is do we know where each and every child on that campus is? And we all do that, and we all take that very seriously, and we know what to do whenever something comes up, because those kids are our utmost responsibility.
Next question.
I know that you, as principals, all collaborate together to come up with ideas for best ways to handle situations, parent involvement. Has anybody come up with any new ideas recently to help parent involvement? I know that's always a challenge, but just if there's been any new things that y'all found at one campus or heard from another that help increase that parent involvement. PTA is always out there, but I didn't know if there's anything that they.
Not really a new idea, but one of the things we talk about, it's like, why do we think about this before? The issue is we want parent involvement. The problem is that we have a lot of parents who do not have a lot of discretionary time. We have multiple job. People have worked multiple jobs, and so what we do is that we try to open up our request for not just after school. We have opportunities during the school day that you have 20, 30, 40 minutes if you want to be involved. Outside of every classroom, we have a box, and the teacher put the things in the boxes that have cut, laminated, copied, and things like that. So if you only have 15, 20 minutes, then you can come in and you can do what you like to do. That's something we've done at Waldorf. And then we also have, outside of our classroom, there's a chair, and we have a lot of volunteers that come in and do that during the school day. And then, of course, the other issue we have is at night. Like last night, we had a community dinner. It's not a fundraiser for us. We just want to have a mechanism to build community and let people get to know each other. Because when you start networking parents, then you start finding out ways that they can get involved. So that's something we're trying to do.
And one of the things that we've done this year to incorporate core values on our campus is that, and to involve our community, because I have high community involvement on my campus, but again, I do have parents who, in these economic times, it's a little bit harder to get up there. So we're having 2 core value movie nights, and where we're going to emphasize those core values and show a movie, and then have some interactive time with the parent and the student there, as well as the staff members.
One of the things, and I guess when you use the phrase new, it kind of freaks everyone out because these are not new ideas, yeah, but at our campus last year, one of the things we did was we did home visits because we don't have a lot of parent involvement and we didn't have a really strong PTA. So at the beginning of the year, we went to all the 6th graders that were incoming. We gave them letters in Spanish and English, inviting them to our campus. The other thing we did was Northwood Church adopted us on the staff development weekend in October, and the whole community came out because our campus is one of the older ones. They repainted it, they restored a classroom, and I think parents felt connected to what we were doing because they could use a skill or something that they felt they could contribute to our campus. So I think we doubled our PTA membership last year and increased this year as well. So those aren't really new, but going out to the community really brought people in.
At the high school, the way that our parents are involved a great deal are through our booster clubs, and we continue to have great support as far as our booster clubs coming in. But we also want to communicate with our parents that aren't as involved. One thing that we began last year, we have 2 of our EAs that are able to speak Spanish. Communicating, period, is sometimes difficult for us when we try and communicate with parents. So we have been making phone calls all the time to visit about their children at open house this year. Instead of just going to see the teachers, we have 2 different opportunities for parents to come into our Omni room and visit about the EOC and PSAT testing, because we feel it important that at the high school level, and I'm going to make a picture, Dr. Brown, if any of you talk to people out in the community and they don't understand how graduation requirements have changed, that students must pass 15 tests now to graduate rather than 4 their junior year, that's an important piece of information that my campus is working to make sure our parents know. So we're sending out mass emails as well as letters, trying to find ways to communicate with parents about what's important in that step of graduation.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask you, a couple weeks ago, we had one of our teachers, are we doing anything to reach out to families that lost a child? What are we doing as teachers and as students, or are you going to schools to reach out to needs
On our campus, we have, of course, a crisis counselor, and anytime we hear of something that we have a student that loses a parent, or if we, have multiple, we're like a city, we have 2,200 students, and there are many different awful things that happen. The crisis counselor usually will get a team of people to help when we heard about the loss of the student, and I believe it was former Christian. Two of my students wanted to know, what are we going to do at the football game? What are we going to do to remember this person? We all knew him. This is very important to us. What are we going to do? So I immediately called Mr. Wells because they were the home team, we were the visiting team. And he said that they would talk about that in their student expression when the student was able to speak. We do try and get together, and sometimes it's students that we have a PALS group, and that PAL team will help. And then we also have teachers that we try and help. We had 2 teachers this week at Richland that their dryer caught on fire. They just got married this summer, and of course they've been out for 2 days because fortunately they could move to his parents' home. But we've all tried to begin to help them, you know, make it so. We're very much interlocked because to me, to be a balance, education's important and learning's important, but caring about one another, and the core values group that Dr. Kemp and Ms. Laird started, they're very, very helpful to us when we have ideas or need things, or what are your thoughts, what do we need to do, we go directly to them, just like we would in a crisis with a fire or anything. It's nice to have those people that are objective off-site, because you know, you want to help your students, but you don't want to get them so off kilter that they can't focus on what they need to be doing in school too. But we're there as a support.
Brent, we actually, our team, our emergency management team coordinates that. With Connor's passing on Friday night, Mark, Donna, and I were in communication all weekend. Donna, we actually offered our crisis counseling services to Holy Christian. We had counselors on site at Smithfield Middle because we know the adult loses the child. It not only can be that teacher that's their children are affected, but the staff. And so we are prepared to do that. We've done that many times through the years. I will tell you as a side note, just the Smithfield family has worked with the Gage family, and they're, instead of the Gages go to our church, so I just happen to know them too. But the Smithfield family is going to provide dinner for them every Thursday from now until Christmas. So they're just doing that on their own. So we reach out, whatever the family needs, we work to meet those needs.
And I would say that in each of these situations is different because people grieve differently. And when you respond to how people grieve, it just varies. You know, at Smithville, one year we lost a student, Kelly Cattleman. She was hit by a car walking home on a Saturday morning. And that family, that was the second child they had lost. And it was just interesting how they needed the campus to respond and how that varies person to person. You know, Laura Friend, her daughter died at NRH2O several years ago. There was a different response for that family. It's just based a lot on how that family is grieving and how you can help them. So you kind of have to look at each situation differently.
Any question, please? I've got a few that were had submitted electronically. And this is to any elementary principal. And the question is how do you decide and how do you group your kids at the beginning of the school year when you create your class rosters?
On my campus, we do our grouping at the end of the year, and the teachers in a particular grade level, I give them how many classes to divide them up to. We talk about balance and how you know, you need to look at not putting all special needs in one particular classroom or all of the GT kids in one, how those are divided up. And so the teachers do, on my campus, they do that at the end of the year. They submit those to me. They don't get to pick the teacher. And while I don't take parent requests for teachers, I do ask parents to submit letters that describe their child and what they feel would be the best learning environment for them or what their needs are. So over the summer then, I look at each one of those letters and I go through each one of those groupings and I make decisions about where to place children. And so for me, it has worked wonderfully in the past. What it's created is balanced classrooms. So.
As a parent, I know at Grace Hardin we've had that opportunity for years and years now to submit a letter. I know the first year we did it, there was a lot of letters, but after that it was just the comfort of knowing that you could write the letter. I don't think Mr. Russell gets a ton now, but it's just that peace of mind that we could if we felt we needed to. So I appreciate you doing that at your school.
Well, and what I have found since I have been at Porter for 8 years is that I think that the community we've built a relationship and there's trust there. And even if I don't get, anytime I go to a meeting about a child or, I make notes and I put those in a file. So when I do those lists in the summer after they're given to me, I can look at each one of those and carefully make sure that the selection for that child is the appropriate one. So, and I found that my letters have gotten less and less over the years that I've been there.
We go through a process at Walker Creek. This last year was the first year. It was something we developed with David E. Smith that's worked really well. Each teacher in April is given the opportunity to look at their students academically and also behaviorally, if there are any particular behavior challenges. And so we take those, we call them the student grouping matrix, so that we get to look at not only academic performance but behavioral performance on the same piece of paper. And then we look at class lists as a matter of equity, so that we don't have any situation where one class has a stacked class, so to speak, either high or low. And this process, it just seems to work. I do about 95% of that work myself. We go through an elaborate spreadsheet. We look at special needs. Are they in a dyslexia program? Are they in a special ed program? Are they in a GT program? Should they be separated from another person? We look at all of those things, and we go through this process. It takes several days. And then we have also a pass-on folder where teachers get their class lists in May with this information from the previous teacher, and they get a picture of the students, so they've got that summer to look at their class list. What are the strengths and needs of their students? What do the students look like, so they can hit the ground running in August? And I think that the biggest reason I know this process works is with almost 700 kids at Walker Creek, I only had one request for a change of teacher. And at a school like Walker Creek, that's pretty remarkable, so that tells me that process works.
The next question I have is directed specifically to the high school. It says, managing a large high school seems like a very difficult job. What's a typical day like?
Wow. Wow.
Remember, this is a public meeting.
It's never what you expect. You have plans to go in. Visibility is key, being out in the hall, seeing the students. I feel like, and I love to see parents, don't get me wrong, but when I see parents and I'm spending time with parents, I'm away from the students. And I really like to be out with the students. We now have PLCs, professional learning communities, to go around and see the number of professional learning communities we have. Every period you can have at least 3 of those going on, that you want to see that, plus you want to see people teaching. Thinking on your feet would be a key thing that would describe a high school principal. I embrace seeing our students learning, so being out in the classroom would be just wonderful. The truth is, that doesn't happen always, because you go in and you have some type of crisis, and it may be something as small as, I forgot my ID at home and I have to have it, and we've had freshmen that would cry over that. And so consoling people, meeting people, and also supporting your teaching staff. The teaching staff, of course, at our school we have many of them that have, somebody may have a car accident on the way to work, or someone has a sick child, or a teacher, may think that they've got West Nile. They don't, so don't panic about that. But several different issues occur, and then we have medical emergencies, because we have students that have all different types of issues that are concerning. But a typical day, it is the most exciting job. I mean, what they do at the ad building, I appreciate what they do, but that just is so boring compared to what we get to do. I mean, we are out there, and it is action, and it is active, and the key thing is, when you get to see the students in extracurricular activities, one of the most fun things we've done is when we had the Holiday Heights teachers last week, we had them at our pep rally. And it was so much fun because when they came down out of the stands for Johnny Be Good, because our Johnny Reps will go up and get people, and they came down and ran down, the kids are seeing teachers that they had in elementary. And it was so special. It was just really a special day for us. And we, were able to, our kids wanted to take up money in our teachers, and we donated money to them to help with their classrooms. And it was just a special time. But activity at high school, there's nothing like it. The drama that you see in middle school, I love it, and that's kind of exciting, but they're past that when they get to high school. We still have some drama, but the key thing is it's just a joy being there every day. And it is not a day that you can have a schedule, and I can go by that schedule part of the time, but not most of the time.
We have time for one more question. I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown. Thank y'all.
Great. Well, let's give it Again, we do try to protect their time away from students, which is happening today, but these are important times. We're trying to make sure that our community members and people like yourselves get to hear from Dr. Valenta, Dr. Kemp, know a little bit more, just at least a broad view from 30,000 feet, and you just understand it's much more complex than you think. It's much different than you think. We've all been to school, we've been as students, we think that it's just different. Your perspective is so different when you become a leader. And Carla, my job with 7 school board members is really exciting. so I do believe if you've got a great board like we do, the high school principal job is the most challenging. It's pretty close to middle school. It's challenging in elementary with the little guys. But it gets real serious in high school because you're reaching that culmination of, oh my God, you've got to graduate. You've got to pass the 15 test. It's challenging in elementary, but you feel like when we've got time to catch up. We're behind, let's just see if we can help get them there. When you get to the high school, you see that end result of we're about out of time. And people get really disturbed about missing graduation. It's a big deal is, but yeah, it is a sense of urgency. It's challenging, and it gets really parents get really upset. We're passionate about our children, aren't we? So it is a complex job. Every phase of it, and each group has a very important role in that. So if it all works well together, good things happen. We do have a good system here. We're trying to refine it and make it more productive in today's times because things are different. They are different. You think you want school to be like it was when you were there if you're 40 or 50 years old, but you really don't. Because I can assure you, the learning that's taking place as I watch my children is so significantly better than what I learned. And that's all there is to it. Sure, you can think back to times when maybe it was a little quieter in my hometown, for example, when we did run the streets on bicycles. And my parents didn't worry about it because there were lots of parents watching me and reporting back to what I was doing that I shouldn't be doing. And that doesn't go on in my little town. It's different. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality we have to accept. That's why we're looking at a closer look at security and things, because that is a number one. We say that learning is, and absolutely, that's one of our top priorities. But I'm certain if learning is a top priority, safety and security of our students and staff must be, because you do want the child or that family member to come home at the end of the day unharmed. So that's we take that real seriously. But just a quick wrap up on the Holiday Heights situation. As was stated here, you try to take something bad and make something good out of it. That's exactly what we do. It's an opportunity for us to say, okay, let's take a look at our procedures. What do we do when? And if this happens at this school, where are they going to go? And certainly we had conversations about, depending on how long this goes, yes, our children would go to school. And you might just think, why do you send the kids to school the next day? Those are conversations we have. But when you have a lot of kids who walk to school, who now can't walk to the new place because it's too far, how are those kids getting to school? We'll just bus them, sure, but those 12 extra buses we have sitting out there that just sit idle every day, those imaginary drivers, how do we do that? Well, we'll pick them up about 9. Well, then how do we get them back? Well, we've got to be back for the 2:30 high school run, so about 1:30. See, those parents probably don't think, oh, so that special time for a week or two is only 9 to 1:30. It's probably not the schedule you follow now. It creates problems, doesn't it? And oh, so these guys drive the buses, they're first graders and second graders. We'll just drop them off at the school. Even if they walk, they might be walking home going, oh, wow, the high school kid that's normally there to welcome them in is not going to be there. So you see all the complexities. So do we disrupt the world for 2 or 3 days? Well, we don't do it for ice and snow, so why would we do it for this? Just make a positive. It goes into a couple of weeks, we have no choice. We have to do the emergency, we have to explain, make the transition, and we try to add as much value as we can. Just, you see how much more complex it gets when you start talking about the reality. Oh, we'll just go to school down here, until you start unfolding everything. So just everything that happens, we try to look to say, okay, let's take that. It was, we were unfortunate but still blessed, because as we speak today, those kids are back in school and they're learning just like they were a week ago. So that's a blessing. We're thankful for that. And we're not saying we're going to educate those kids for the rest of the school year. But we have looked, we'll continue to look to say, okay, where's the overflow for this school? And sometimes this church or this place will be best for this area. And once it transitions over here, so we're taking a close look at that to be better prepared next time. I think it's a great thing. Next meeting is October 24th. It'll be a final meeting. We'll hear from the communication department. We'll talk about volunteers. You hear from the technology department. Technology is a different world. Talking about different than it was when I went to school. Kids ask me, Dad, when'd you get your first cell phone? I said, well, I was 32. 32? I mean, other than a big box in somebody's truck, it looked about like a suitcase, you know, that was plugged into the truck. We didn't have cell phones. We're going, wow, that's so cool. You mean you didn't have an iPhone? No, baby, I didn't have an iPhone. I thought that was just like something really incredible. But their perspective is so different. They just thought, you know, everything's been around, hasn't it? Well, for them, they live a little short life. There's not much that's that brand new. But it's just interesting to deal with that. So their reality is it's everything. They're so comfortable with this, and we're having to, as adults, to get more comfortable with it. So we're trying to teach in that way in the 21st century. We often say we're trying to prepare our kids for their future, not our past. And that sometimes challenges us. So that's part of what we do, is just try to let you know the world that we live in, the world that our kids live in, so you can be better informed and certainly be a part of that process. So thanks to the principal for the great leadership that they've exhibited. That's a big key to our success. Thank you for partnering with us. We'll see you on the 20th.